Hi my friends! Spring is here and it's a perfect time to paint some simple and aesthetic flowers. In this video, I will show you an easy ink and watercolor technique that's great for beginners because each flower uses just one color of paint, so no need to worry about mixing. You can also download the line work of all 6 flowers for free on my Patreon page to use as a reference or trace into your sketchbook or any sheet of paper. Just check the link in the description. For these little paintings, I'll be using a set of 6 Japanese watercolor paints that I recently bought, my Lamy Fontaine pen and Saunders Waterford watercolor paper. Of course, feel free to use any colors from your own favorite watercolor palette. You definitely don't need this exact Japanese watercolor set. But for me, these 6 colors were the inspiration for the whole video. They are so rich, complex and unique that I wanted to enjoy each one color on its own. So in this tutorial, each flower will have its own individual color. As for the pen, the same situation, use whatever liner or pen you already have. The only important thing is that the ink should be waterproof. That is why I filled my Lamy pen with waterproof ink, so it won't smudge when I add the watercolor on top. And that's it, so let's get started! In drawing there is a general rule, work from big shapes to small details. So first we sketch the main positions of the flowers with the simple circles and mark the direction of the branches, and only after that we move on to drawing the petals. When outlining with ink, a natural little shakiness in your hand can actually be a good thing. Slightly uneven lines make the petals look softer and more delicate. Next, we apply a light transparent wash of watercolor over each flower. While the paper is still wet, we add a bit more pigment towards the base of the bud. This helps to create a gentle gradient. To lighten the tips of some petals, you can do the opposite thing. Just drop a little clean water and it will soften the color naturally. Once everything is completely dry, we go back with a fine brush and add veins and textures to the petals with a second layer of paint. And finally, we add a few shadows on the branches. Let's imagine the light is coming from the right side, so the shadows will fall to the left. And I also added a small background branch that I forgot to draw earlier. The same steps in drawing we apply for the snowdrops. We begin with loose shapes for the flowers. The more random and scattered, the better. Then we draw the small round base of each bud and the petals. To make them look like true snowdrops, I try to keep that slightly diamond-like shape with pointed tips. Usually I draw 3 petals in the front and 1 or 2 peeking through from the back. Next, we add the stem and that little curved leaf in the top, followed by a mass of thin grass-like leaves at the bottom. The color work here is super simple because these leaves form one large connected shape. The white flowers stand out beautifully in contrast. Just use a fresh spring green tone to paint all the leaves in one go. To add more depth, we can layer the second wash on a few of the leaves, especially near the buds. That way the flowers will appear even more luminous. And finally, just a few transparent strokes on the petals to give them a bit of dimension, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed how easy this one was, and yet it already looks like a vintage botanical illustration. Here is another simple sketch that is great for learning one of the most basic composition rules. Placing your main subject slightly off-center, like using the rule of thirds, can instantly make your composition feel a little bit more interesting. For the painting part, we will use a fun technique called negative painting, a method where you paint around subject rather than directly on it. First, we will lay down a wash around the water lilies to separate them from the background. Then, after that layer dries, we will add another layer to separate both the flowers and the leaves from the background even more. With each new layer, we build more depth and create a sense of space. To give the flowers just a hint of volume, I add a light transparent gradient. Just enough to make them three-dimensional, but not too much to lose the contrast against the darker background. And finally, we'll deepen the tones on the foreground a bit. Objects closer to the viewer can have a bit more contrast. Each hydrangea flower is made up of 4 almost round petals and a tiny center. I loosely fill the shape of the bloom with a bunch of these little flowers, leaving some gaps and couple of abstract lines here and there to suggest that other petals exist in the background. We will use a layering technique here, gradually building up tone and depth step by step. First, I apply a light wash over all the petals. Next, I paint the spaces between the flowers. This helps show the round shape of the full bloom and give it some volume. Then, to add a bit more form, I darken the centers of the individual flowers with a second layer. Now we can slowly increase the contrast in the shadows between the flowers, especially in the lower part of the bloom. We repeat the same steps for the lower bloom, building up the shadows again layer by layer until we get a nice rich blue in the deeper areas. And it's never too late to come back to your composition. Add a few extra leaves here and there or more petals. The shape of an iris is very easy to recognize, and just like with the Magnolia, a slightly shaky or loose incline only adds to its charm. I play the stem a little off center on the page to make the composition more interesting. First, I lay down a pale violet wash to set the overall tone. Then I switch to a fine brush to start adding veins and shadows. Here the brush almost works like a pencil. We are using fine strokes and it is best to follow the natural curves of the petal as you paint. Try to guide your lines along those bends to make the shape feel more three-dimensional. Take your time and give it a try. I'm sure you'll do great. We are wrapping up our floral collection with some cheerful, vibrant dahlias. As usual, we start by sketching loose circular shapes, but this time it is also important to clearly mark the center of each flower. From that center point, we draw drop-shaped petals. Begin with the smallest one near the middle and work in layers, making each row of petals a bit bigger as you move outward. You will be surprised how easy it is to handle so many petals and still create a nice sense of dimension using only one color. First, we cover the entire flower with a light transparent wash. Then, to show its round ball-like shape, we darken the right side with a bit more pigment and soften the left side with just a touch of clean water. And now for the finishing touches. On some petals we add a second layer of color near the base to create shadow, while leaving the tips light. For petals on the shadow side of the flower, we simply deepen the color of shadow a bit more to bring out the contrast. I hope these 6 lovely flowers inspire you to dive into your own spring art adventures. Let me know in the comments if you enjoy botanical watercolor and what your favorite flower is. Who knows, maybe we'll paint it in one of the next videos. See you again soon!